Happy to be joined by Aspen Ladd, who's going to be back in action PFL 2, April 7th, right around the corner. Aspen, how are you? Live from the car, as usual.
Yeah, no, my life's in the car, commuting, training, whatever.
Yes. It looked like you got a full camp for this one, though. When did you find out about the fight?
I I knew about it since last year when I fought in November. I already knew when the season was going to start, and I knew I was going to be in it, so I had a very good idea.
Yeah, no, it's good to always get that as well. Let's talk about that PFL debut. You took out a really good fighter in Julia Budd, someone I know quite well. She actually lives here where I live here in Vancouver. She's about 40 minutes away. Former Bellator champ. Just how big of a win was that for you? You know, making a statement in your debut, taking on a former Bellator champion.
Julia Budd's a fantastic fighter and a huge opponent, especially to get your first time in a new promotion. So that was a big deal. Obviously, I always feel like I could do better. But at the same time, when you have an opponent of that caliber, it's hard to, it's not going to be an easy fight regardless.
Yeah. Did the I mean, you're always confident going into every fight, but did it go up even more defeating her just because she is like a mainstay featherweight fighter? She's strong. Like you've seen the performances that she's had in the past. Does that, kind of going over there, coming through in your debut, does that kind of give you a bit of a boost going into this fight?
I definitely wanted the toughest fight that I can get coming in, and especially at 45, like I wanted to test myself, and she was fantastic as far as that goes. And that is a very strong woman being in there with her. She was very, very good opponent for my first time.
Yeah, no, it worked out really well. That was awesome. So let's talk about your opponent, Olena Kolesnyk. Did you know much about her before taking this fight? Are you someone that kind of pays attention to the roster, or was it a bit of a surprise when you found out the opponent?
Honestly, I kind of had this weird feeling it was going to be her. Like, I didn't know who was in the tournament. I didn't even find out who was going to be in it or who I was facing until a few weeks ago. I had a general idea of the date, but not the opponent. But yeah. So I was familiar with her because I've seen her fight a few times, but not super familiar. So I've done a little bit of research since then. So I had a general idea, but not a very good one.
And I know you're always getting prepared for your fights, always zoning in on the opponents. So now that you have looked her up and everything, how do you feel like stylistically you match up against her in this fight?
I think she's a very heavy, she likes to be, or she tries to be, a very heavy-handed southpaw striker. And it's an interesting one. She's not the ground game is not something she seems to enjoy all that much. And I think it's a good matchup.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Training camp. I saw you've been working with someone I know quite well, Chelsea Chandler, in camp. How has that been getting to work with her, who's also a featherweight as well?
We've been around each other a lot. I mean, we trained years and years ago, but then obviously we haven't, because you never know, like, especially being in the same area, you're all coming up at the same time. It's like, you might end up fighting. But things kind of changed in the last year or so. She started working with my strength and conditioning coach too, Lem Adams at Game Fit. And anybody in the NorCal area, a lot of the higher level athletes gravitate towards him. And then same physical therapist, a lot of things. So we're around each other a lot. So obviously you kind of get a rapport going. And more than that, especially for this opponent coming up, I have a heavy-handed southpaw striker. And then you have Chelsea right here. And that is she's the ideal training partner for that situation. And she's a good fighter. Very good.
And who else have you had a chance to work with as far as training partners this camp?
As far as high-level females, obviously most of my training, like most women that do this, is with men. She is probably the highest level female that I've worked with for this camp for this person, because she's basically her, only I think she's a little more technical.
That's great. And how nice is it fighting at featherweight? You don't even really have to worry too much about the weight. How's that been? Just, one less thing to worry about during camp.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Healthy, happy, and just feeling good.
Your corner, Jim West, who else will be in the cage with you that night?
It's going to be Jim, Marcus, and Dave.
That's great. How's your brother doing, by the way? Shealor, I'm trying to keep tabs on his fight career. How's all that going?
He's actually fighting this upcoming weekend.
Is he really? Okay,
yeah.
Well, there you go. See, it's tough to keep track because I know the regional scene, they post stuff late, but how's his whole transition been? Because he's a couple fights now into his career, right?
Oh, he's more than a couple. So this will be his 8th amateur fight. He's currently 7-0, and then he's 1-0 in kickboxing.
Oh, so, cool.
Yeah, he's doing fantastic. The only issue with him is actually getting him fights and then the opponent sticking around.
Yeah, I bet. Because they see that last name. They also see, how big of a guy he is too, right? So
it's not only that, because it's like he's got the last name, so they Google him and they know that. But he's also, because he's one of Fluffy's training partners and has been for a long time, like he's done stuff with him. So you start looking him up, you get all kinds of stuff. And he did high school wrestling only for a year, but he was doing fantastic with it. So you look him up, and then all this stuff comes up, and then people are like, let's just not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Well, that's good to see. And do you think he'll go pro this year, or will it be next year? Because he's got 8 fights already. Still just building up that resume.
Yeah, it's so hard to say because he's still so young, and I think that timing is really, really important, and not going too early. Like there's some phenomenal young talents that have gone to the UFC before they're ready. Like there's a couple of them now where it's like if they face anybody in the top like 25, they're gonna get wrecked. So you want the experience, and you want to go at the right time. I think he probably will in the next year, but I'm not one of his coaches making that decision. So it's whenever he's comfortable with it and the coaches that are looking after him are comfortable with it.
I know you feel like you're going to get your hand raised on April 7th. Otherwise, why sign the contract? But how's this one playing out? How do you see it going down?
You have to wait and see.
There we go. I knew I was going to get that answer, but I have to ask anyway. Just one time I'm waiting for like a different answer. So I have to keep asking it as well. So we talked sort of about the PFL season. Have you had a chance to look at some of the other opponents there? Like, is there any matchups that you look at, again, not looking past April 7th, that you look at and you say, that would be a really fun fight?
Yeah, no, I've definitely skimmed it. But I've not hyper focused on anybody because right now, my opponent is all that matters. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, there's some very talented specialists. There's not anybody I'd say is like fantastic in absolutely every part of MMA, but that's not many people are. There's only one chick where it's like, oh, she's got a really good ground game. But the rest of them there's a lot of strikers in the season from what I've seen, but I need to look into them more, and I will do that as time goes on. Obviously the format of PFL is something I'm sure you really enjoy as well. It's based off merit. Like, how much do you like that? You don't have to worry about, talking trash on the mic or anything. It's based off your results. I love it. And I love it for more than one reason too, because I've been so used to, since I've started fighting, especially since going pro, you can go 4 or 5 months, you could be shelved. Like you can piss somebody off and you can get shelved, or you can be shelved for some other reason. You just don't get a fight for whatever reason. But with this format, you're basically guaranteed fights within a certain time frame, and it's fantastic to know that. It's very exciting for me.
The $1 million, that's at the end of this thing. What would you do with the money? Because I know that's the goal. That's why you're in PFL. A lot of people I'm sure would get different stuff, but you like being outdoors. I got to imagine you'd be spending something, maybe like a nice cabin or something. I don't know what would you be doing with the money?
So I have my house currently, and I have to get some work done on it. But obviously, the first thing that comes to my mind is paying it off. So yeah,
that's good.
Very
Equity.
simple.
It's important. That's great. And before we get out of here, any cool hikes you've been on? Anything you got coming up? You're still doing the hiking, I know, probably right up until fight time. It's your escape, right?
Yes. Have you been watching the news or anything? Like, I don't know if in Canada they're showing like the storms that have been going on here.
To be honest, I don't watch a ton of the news, but yeah, fill me in. I'm a sheltered Canadian, so I need to hear this stuff.
Okay, so like I live, let's say 50 minutes from Tahoe, and because I use Tahoe as a reference point because most people know where it is.
Yep.
And we have currently, and there's another storm coming. This is the most snow we've had in 70 years. So it's been an astronomical amount of snow. Like even I couldn't get out a couple days. So
really?
Yeah,
wow, it must be pretty bad if you're not going out, right? So.
Oh yeah, it's got to be astronomical for me not to be able to get out, and it was astronomical. But so a lot of snow showing right out my door, but it's just the weather pattern has been incredible, and I like this kind of stuff. Like it's inconvenient, but it's awesome. So yeah, no, a lot of hiking in extreme weather.
Well, I will say this. I was in Vegas a few weeks ago covering the UFC card, and there was snow in Vegas. I've never seen that before. So I know something's up with the weather right now. I know California's a little bit further away, but still, that was crazy just even to see that. So.
Which UFC card?
UFC 285.
Oh, wow. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, like there was snow in the mountains. I've never seen snow in the mountains in Vegas before. It was crazy.
Yeah, no, like I've heard stories of it, but obviously that's not my home area.
I have a photo. I'll send it to you after. I swear there's snow in the mountains. It was insane. I've never seen it because I live in an area which does have snow in the mountains. So going somewhere warmer, it's just weird to see, right? So
very.
That's nuts. Hey, Aspen, thanks for doing this. I know you got a busy day. If there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media, I'll give you the last word.
I want to thank you for having me on, and it was nice seeing you and seeing your face pop up.
Yes, I know. I exist. I haven't gone into witness protection. So make sure you watch PFL 2.